Hi everyone, my name is Alex Giguere, and I'm an epic fantasy writer. Welcome to the first video of my YouTube channel. I want to say first and foremost that I am not a YouTuber, and I do not want to be a YouTuber. My main focus will be to promote my writing, and through YouTube, I plan on discussing my writing techniques, my writing process, where I'm at with my writing to give everyone a heads up on what to expect for those. And then also kind of do some fun reaction and analysis on some fantasy stories, some that are my favorites, and then maybe others that I have yet to watch or listen to or read. So that is the goal for this channel. I think it'll be really fun and it might evolve over the time, but those will be the core things that I focus on is sharing with you my writing, and I want you to be able to enjoy what I create, whether it be through short stories or my main focus is writing books, eventually into bigger series, all set in an epic fantasy universe. What I want to do in this video is just introduce myself, tell you a little bit about what my interest in fantasy is, how I came to not just enjoying it, but also why I enjoy writing in it, and hopefully have you join me along on this fun ride and see where it goes. I'm not necessarily sure if this is what kind of piqued my interest in epic fantasy and definitely too far away from writing, but my earliest recollection of enjoying something that was fantasy related was the Dark Crystal movie when I must have been, I don't know if I was 3, 4, or 5. I was somewhere around that age when I first watched it, and it both terrified me and and also amazed me at the same time. As a young kid, there were some pretty scary things in that movie, but I remember finding a thrill in the world that it's set in. I enjoyed the story and how fantastic it was. So that was my earliest memory of enjoying something that was fantastic. After that, what really kind of kicked things off into the more, even though it still has some child themes into it in a little bit more immature tone, was listening to the Hobbit cassette tapes when I was 6 or 7 years old. My stepfather introduced me to that, and before we would go to bed each night, me with my stepbrother and my stepfather, we would listen to the cassette tapes and go through the Hobbit. And I forget which version it was, but it was a dramatized one. And I mean, I would still love it to this day, listening through it to it. But as a kid, it just blew my mind. Listening to this awesome story with dwarves and goblins, and it was so exciting to me. So that really got me interested in Lord of the Rings, as a lot of people who get introduced to fantasy tend to start out with that as well. After that, of course, a natural stepping stone was the Lord of the Rings movies that came out. I did watch the movies before the books, before I read the books. I was 9 when the first movie came out. And it just increased my love of fantasy even more so. I remember it must have been a between 3 and 3.5 hours sitting in the theater as a 9-year-old, and I just remember enjoying every single bit of it. And when it ended, being so sad that it was over because I just wanted to keep watching it and get wrapped up in that world. After that, it really took off my interest in fantasy, and that's what I wanted to consume and what I love thinking about and reading. Kind of going hand in hand to that. I forget exactly when I read Lord of the Rings the first time. I was young. I don't know how close it was to the movie's time. It was somewhere around probably the last one coming out when I got slightly older. But I think before I read Lord of the Rings was Harry Potter. Now, even though Harry Potter's in a different realm, it's not epic fantasy. It's kind of in its own category in a way. But it is a fantasy story. The one thing that really piqued my interest with it and why I enjoyed it was because I got to grow up essentially with Harry and his friends. And I think the last book came out when I was 15 or 16, and I read the first one when I was 8 or 9. So growing up with Harry, it felt super real, and I could envision myself in that world and feel right along beside him. And that took me even further into the immersiveness of a story and being able to not just enjoy the characters you're reading about, but wanting to be a part of the story with them. I was introduced to Thomas Covenant at a very young age. I think I read that when I was around 11. I was around 11 years old, and that one was a bit of a harder read for an 11-year-old, for anyone who's ever read those. And for Thomas Covenant, it is a kind of love or hate relationship with them. I love them, I think, due to my father loving them and introducing them to me, and then also just me enjoying them and growing up with them. I will admit that there are some issues with them, whether it's the archaic language that can sometimes get in the way of just wanting to get into the story. But overall, they're one of my favorite books, right next to The Lord of the Rings. In any regard, I think the author Donaldson did a amazing job of making it feel like a real place, the land. And he kind of took me from the step of enjoying fantasy and wanting to be involved in it as much as possible to kind of making it a desire of mine to want to actually write fantasy. So even though Lord of the Rings grabbed me in, Harry Potter kind of solidified that. It wasn't until Thomas Covenant that it's something that really called my attention and what I wanted to do. And that's when I started to write as a 10, 11, 12-year old. And um, as anyone can imagine, a 11-year-old's writing was quite horrid, I imagine. But the very few people who read it encouraged me. And I remember my dad, he told me years later on, but reading my what I had written and just thinking to himself how awful it was, which is to be expected, but not wanting to destroy a 10-year-old's dream. He told me that he enjoyed it and it was great and what every good parent would do, and it kept pushing me on. And I'm glad that he encouraged me with it. After Thomas Covenant, and there's a lot of fantasy books that I read in between. These are just kind of the main ones that solidified and pointing me into the direction of wanting to write my own stories. What really then kind of put the capstone on it was reading the Silmarillion. I read that later on, towards the end of high school, then again in college, and I've read it twice since. But reading it that first time, um, I think it's probably my favorite book. It has a great blend of telling a story. I mean, it's a one grand story, but several other smaller stories in there, and just makes this world alive and makes it real, believable. And some may argue whether too much world building's gone into it. Maybe Tolkien could have written other stories with, I don't know, like more dialogue between characters. But I think that the Silmarillion was a perfect thing for him to write because I think it captures the beauty of everything that he wanted to tell. There's stories, there's amazing characters in the Silmarillion, and it really brings to light a lot of stuff that happens in Lord of the Rings. And again, it just makes a universe that is real, which is just kind of mind boggling that in someone's mind they can create a place, a location, a stories, characters that operate independently from our real world, yet it feels so real to us. And so that's what really did it. And I had been writing throughout high school and up to this stage, but this just really propelled me even further into writing. And then I won't spend too much time on this next one, but a little shout out to The Wheel of Time. I feel like that even though you can classify Lord of the Rings as epic fantasy, high fantasy, same with Thomas Covenant, they can kind of get a little bit jumbled a little bit. The Wheel of Time I picked up in college, and that also was just, I realized that at that point you could tell very grand long stories and have it be entertaining throughout the whole way, maybe with some qualms in some middle books. Won't step on any toes there, but so yeah, anyway, that's kind of my introduction to fantasy. That probably follows actually a lot of people my age. Lord of the Rings, when that came out, Harry Potter, the good old days, I guess, looking back at it now. But that's kind of my introduction to fantasy and why I want to write it, because I want to create a world where not only I can enjoy it, but where others can enjoy it. I want to create interesting characters that you would love to be in a conversation with, worlds that are epic and grand in scale and feel very lived in, and then stories that are unforgettable. So that's my goal and my aim. Yeah, so that's what I'm seeking to do. Again, just just kind of a summation of everything. Not a YouTuber. I am a writer, and that's what the purpose of these videos are. I'll be reviewing my writing processes throughout. I'll be updating on where I'm at with my writing, and then also the kind of second aspect of everything is I have some pretty fun plans that I'm excited for about going through some books, some TV shows, maybe movies. Not necessarily giving it a review, a score out of 10, but just giving my reaction as I go through them and my analysis from my perspective. I'm not a reviewer, so I won't be reviewing everything that comes out. I might not even hit a lot of popular things that come out. It'll just be as I pick and choose things and stories that I want to go through. Yeah, I'm very excited about that piece as well. All right, where else can you find me? My website is jalexgiguere.com. So JALEXGIGUERE.com. And I'll put that in the description. On there, my good buddy of mine had his team make this website, and I am really happy with it. I have my blogs on there. You can also go on there to find my most recent podcast episodes. It's also where I'll be updating my progress in some of the books that I'm writing, so you can stay up to date on that if I haven't made a video in a little bit touching on those things. Shortly, I will have a newsletter ready to go on there. Purposes of the newsletter is not to spam you with a ton of content. That's the goal of this YouTube channel. So I'll be using that probably for like a monthly update on my writing. Also, whenever there's a project release coming up that I want you to get excited for, and then also to send you some free things when they come available, whether it's maybe the prologue and the first chapter of a new book I'm writing, just so you can get hands on that first. So I will keep everyone up to date on that when that is available. And then, of course, YouTube. Again, this will be kind of my primary way of speaking to you. So if you have any questions or comments or want to say anything, drop them down, leave a comment. Also on my website is a contact form. I definitely would love to hear from you. You can talk about whatever. I will respond to you, and definitely would look forward to any conversation that you want to have. Ways that you can help me right now. Please like the video for sure. Subscribe, hit the ring bell, get notified whenever new videos come up, drop a comment, share it, tell people about it. Just any way to kind of get the word out, and yeah, keep watching the videos. Again, I am really excited to go on this journey with everyone who wants to come along with me, and really want you to enjoy the writings that I have in store, and excited to put those out. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.